so this is about distilleries. If you want to start a brewery, a distillery.
Well, you know,
there's a lot of
my cousins have already started one of those. Now, how are those playing tonight?
So, well, the thing is, the problem when you have a distillery or whatever, it's always the revenuers, right?
The revenuers.
Dang revenuers.
Are we talking about the Dukes of Hazzard kind of thing?
Yeah. Who's the guy with the jug? Who was like the cartoon character? I forget the guy. What is the guy's name?
Yeah, but it's the whole idea that we, out in the forest, we have a still.
Right. So there used to be thousands and thousands of stills in the South during Prohibition, which is the best thing that ever happened to bootleggers. But the main thing about booze and liquor is taxation. So if you're going to do a distillery, the big issue is like, where did all the liquor go? Okay? Your tanks have to be labeled. Your tanks have to be numbered. You have to keep track of every drop of liquor, okay? Now, sometimes, you know, it's hard to account for. If you spill some, you got to account for a spill.
Well, what I understand is you spill some, you have to pretend like you sold it, and you still have to pay tax on the amount that was spilled. You got to pay for it.
No, if you can document it's spilled, if you can document it's spoiled, if you document it went into the barrel, it soaks in the barrel, you can document it has been evaporated. You can document that loss, but it's got to be documented because otherwise you're going to be taxed for it.
Well, I have a question though. After doing thousands and thousands of gallons, how are you going to be documenting that? Oh, by the way, we lost a few hundred gallons.
Well, the thing about it is because they will look at your books. They'll look at like how much corn you bought, how much you bought, how much water you used, and you're supposed to do kind of a balance on and explain where everything went. And if you can't, because what they say, what comes up in evaporation, that's called the angel share. What goes into the drum or the barrel. Soaks in the barrel, that's the devil's share. But but I mean, if you can't explain where it went, you get taxed.
Okay, well, I'm gonna give you something that's is relevant to all bar owners in California. It's called the Board of Equalization.
Yeah.
What they do is they monitor every bit of alcohol you purchase.
Right.
And if you can't account for so many drinks per bottle, and you're taxing. Then they'll come in and say, oh, we speculate that you get 16 shots out of every bottle. And at $5 a shot, you owe us X. And if you're saying, I only got, I didn't get 16 shots. I got 12 shots. Oh, sorry, you owe us for the 4 shots, even if you didn't get the 4 shots. And it should have been at $5 a shot. So what happens is California has its own little unique group that enforces that. But tell us about distilleries.
Okay, but I'm saying it's the same kind of thing for a distillery. You have to have your tanks labeled. You're supposed to keep track of where everything goes. And so anything that you can't keep track of course, you're going to be taxed as if it was sold.
Yeah, well, that's you know, unfortunate part about that is that if you're not paying attention, you can be under strict scrutiny.
Right.
And the fact of the matter is, because it's such a huge subject, alcohol sales, and it's such a huge taxed item.
It was the first thing that the U.S. government ever taxed.
Yeah.
The Whiskey Rebellion. It was the
Whiskey Rebellion.
First source of revenue there really ever was. And it hasn't changed at all, okay? And so then another issue, if you're an owner of a distillery, who can drink at work? So then you've got a problem, like say you have interns, are they 21? Let's say that you have the winemaker or the beer meister or whoever's doing it, they have to drink to taste it, right?
Right.
But then the other time, what if the other employees are drinking, they're drinking at the bar and they've got like your, you know, something brewery t-shirt on, they start scaring away customers. So there's a lot of problems with employees drinking at work at the distillery because you're in a distillery, there's a lot of liquor.
Well, I got to tell you,
that's something that's got to be watched.
I was in Colorado once and went to the, I did a tour of the Coors Brewery, and, and I will tell you that it seems as though that beer is readily available.
They were smiling.
And they were smiling. They were happy. It was a happy group of employees.
Happy group of employees.
And when they say it's mountain fresh or it comes from the mountain, they're already past the mountain part. They're already in the brewery.
Yeah. So, okay, so there's issues there. And then also if you have employees that work for your brewery or your distillery, they get a DUI, there's other problems there. So there's certain problems.
Well, they're not holding companies liable for employees that get DUIs, are they?
Well, but it is a kind of a thing that you might get sued. There could be a problem.
Would that be the old Dram Shop Act? The idea that if you get drunk at a bar, that it would be the bar's responsibility?
Well, they're supposed to cut you off when you're...
Yeah, it's supposed to cut you off when you've had too many.
At a certain point.
Yeah, but is that at what level?
Well, that's kind of a discretionary thing.
Oh, discretionary. Is that a lot like the enforcement of the DAPA and the DACA?
Yeah, sort of. It's like, well, those are in those emails on that server. But okay, so, then you've got wage, hour issues, you've got volunteers, you've got interns, you've got all these different things about are the interns or the volunteers just working for booze? That's whether that's a form of payment.
Yeah, but what if they only want to work for booze?
Okay, and then you've got, do you have underage employees? That's another problem. And then you've got tip and tip pools, the front and back end of the restaurant, or not the restaurant, but the brewery and the wine tasting.
But what about ownership? Ownership's a whole different
okay,
ball game,
we're almost there. We're almost there. We got safety. There's also, you know, when you're cleaning your kegs, sometimes you use acid to clean your kegs. You can have exploding kegs, so there's safety issues. So there's a lot of liability involved with having a distillery.
The only time I've ever seen an exploding keg is if it rolled down the hill and somebody thought they could tap it after that happened.
Yeah, okay. And so then you've got trademark issues. What are you going to call your brand? You know, you can have a generic name. If you call it Good Beer, everyone's going to say, well, you stole our, you know, everyone's going to say, well, that's our name, and that's our name. If you make up a completely, you know, imaginary name, that's the best. If you call it like Apple, or, you know, Apple's a great, you know, it just has nothing to do with the product. It's hard for you to get copyright or trademark.
Well, I understand. I understand this is one of the biggest areas of trademark infringement. Right. Is the name of like the private breweries.
Well, there's
all
Bud,
the small,
Bud, and Budweiser.
Right.
Okay, we've got Bud here. They got Budweiser in Austria, and they're always fighting over who's the real Bud.
Yeah.
Then you've got descriptive, right? You know, it's like if you say like cold beer or something, well, you're going to have big fights about that all the time.
Right.
Generic names get you in trouble too. So basically, a made-up name like Red Tail Beer is probably your best bet. Something like that, which is completely has nothing to do with beer.
Well, okay, I will tell you, we're not on trademarks tonight, but
we're going to move on.
One of the largest trademarks infringement right now, the largest trademark infringements are all the little private breweries that are trying to make their own beers. Right. And everyone calls it this beer, that beer, sort of beer, kind of beer.
Right.
And the problem is that each time they do that, what's going on is somebody else has already called it that, and there seems to be nothing but enforcement actions against other people infringing on trademarks.
I'm just saying you have to be very careful in picking your name. The more imaginative, the more it has nothing to do with anything. The crazier your name is, the better, really, in a way. That
I agree with
you're not generic, you know. Okay, so trade secrets, recipes, employee confidentiality, problem all the time, winemakers, brewmeisters, whatever, switching companies, taking the recipe. A huge problem. Okay?
Well, it's just like Coca-Cola or any other. There's a recipe that goes along with the basic manufacturing. And if somebody else steals that, it is a proprietary piece of information.
Right.
And the question is, are you going to create another Coca-Cola, but I'm not going to call it Coca-Cola.
Pepsi.
I'm going to call it Pepsi.
Yeah, right. Okay, so those are some of the, and then we had some of the issues that you were bringing up earlier about, well, if you're an owner of a bar or a distillery, anything like this, when you start getting into this, particularly when you're doing retail, when you start to retail, then you have all these tied house laws, which means that they don't want the distillers and the brewers necessarily connected up with the retail. They want them to be kind of separate.
Well, what they don't want is some kind of organized where it looks
like the good old days.
The good old days when we used to be able to control it from the tap to the drink.
Yeah. So we
we can't do that anymore, but we sure try.
So what they have, if you're an owner, you're a 10% owner or greater,
right,
in any kind of bar or retail liquor, wholesale liquor, you've got to go through the ABC, and then you've got to go sign an affidavit. Your wife has to disclose, and they do a background check, make sure that you're not co-owners or have ownership interest over 10%.
Well, there's more than that. You can't have any criminal background.
Right.
You can't do anything that involved any type of other ownership of a liquor distributor or manufacturer. In fact, it's very regulated so that the people don't have any way to make dual income by somehow cutting the corners with a distributor.
What they don't want is, like, you know, some producer to giving a special deal to a retailer, you know, pushing other people out of the business and that kind of thing. They don't want to have special price
structure. But I thought pushing people out of the business
was our business.
That was our business.
The South Side.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, that's what that whole is. They don't want to have a monopoly. They don't want you to get in specialties. They want everybody to have the same opportunity to buy and sell pretty much.